I never thought my husband's disability would make us targets, but when the HOA president chained his wheelchair to our porch, I couldn't have imagined that a single phone call from Michael would bring the governor to our doorstep. How would they react when they realized the disabled man they'd been tormenting was about to dismantle the laws they'd been twisting? Comment below and let me know where you're watching from. We'd only been in our new Maple Grove home for 4 days, and I was unpacking kitchen boxes when I heard 3 sharp knocks at the door. It startled me. I wasn't expecting anyone. Opening the door, I found a woman with sleek black hair and a sharp green blazer standing on our porch. Her smile was tight, not quite reaching her eyes. "Hi there. I'm Linda Harris, president of the Maple Grove Homeowners Association," she said, extending a hand with nails painted to match her outfit. "You must be Mrs. Carter." I shook her hand. "That's right, Emily Carter. We're still settling in." Linda glanced past me into our half-unpacked living room. "I can see that. Well, I won't take much of your time. I'm here to officially welcome you to the neighborhood and get you signed up for the HOA." She pulled a thick folder from her leather tote and held it out. When I hesitated, her smile wavered. "These are the membership papers. All homeowners in Maple Grove must join. It's mandatory." I frowned. "Mandatory? Our realtor never mentioned that. It wasn't in our closing documents." Her smile tightened. "It's a recent rule change, voted on by the board last month. The monthly fee is only $350. $350? I couldn't hide my surprise. "That's steep. It covers landscaping, community events, and property value protection," she said quickly. "Our neighborhood has the highest home values in the county because of our strict standards." Just then, I heard the soft hum of my husband's motorized wheelchair coming down the hall. "Emily, who's at the door?" Michael asked, rolling up beside me. His short blonde hair was messy from the move, and his face looked tired but curious. Linda's eyes flicked to his wheelchair, then to his legs, hidden under a thin blanket despite the warm day. "This is Linda Harris from the HOA," I explained. "She says we need to join." Michael smiled warmly. "Nice to meet you. We're excited to be here." The single-level layout and wide doorways work perfectly for me. Linda's gaze darted to the small ramp we'd installed over the front step. Her lips pressed into a thin line. "About that," she said slowly. "Any exterior modifications need pre-approval from the architectural committee. I don't see any approval forms for that ramp." "We just put it up yesterday," I said. "Michael needs it to get in and out safely. You'll need to submit formal paperwork." "The committee meets monthly," Linda replied, pulling another form from her folder. "And speaking of modifications, I notice your mailbox isn't the standard model, and your house numbers aren't the approved font or size." Michael's smile faded. "We haven't had time to change those yet." "I understand," Linda said, her tone suggesting otherwise, "but we have standards here. That's why our community looks so pristine." I felt a knot forming in my stomach. We're on a fixed income with Michael's medical costs. Adding $350 a month would be tough for us. Linda's expression hardened. "Rules are rules, Mrs. Carter. There are no exceptions." "Can I review these first?" I asked, taking the folder. "Of course. You have 1 week to submit your application and fees." She handed me her business card. "Call if you have questions." As she turned to leave, her eyes lingered on Michael's ramp again. "And do get that approval paperwork in. We wouldn't want to issue a violation notice to new neighbors." After she left, Michael rolled back into the living room. "She seemed intense," he said. "Yeah," I agreed, flipping through the folder. $350 a month is a lot. Look at these rules: specific plants we can grow, approved paint colors, even trash can schedules. "Maybe it won't be so bad," Michael said, ever the optimist. "Communities with standards can be nice." I wasn't convinced. Something about Linda's reaction to Michael's wheelchair unsettled me. I'd picked this house because it could be adapted as his multiple sclerosis worsened. That night, I couldn't sleep, replaying Linda's veiled threats and her stare at the ramp. At 2 a.m., I started digging online for info about the Maple Grove HOA. A news article from 6 months back caught my eye. Maple Grove residents challenged new HOA formation. Homeowners had protested, claiming they never agreed to it when buying their homes. On a local forum, people complained about sudden rule changes and aggressive enforcement. One post chilled me. They targeted Mrs. Evans, that sweet 80-year-old widow. until she sold for peanuts to Linda's sister. Had we moved into a neighborhood run by a power-hungry HOA president? How could an HOA become mandatory for existing homeowners? County records showed it was registered just 9 months ago, after we'd bought our house. By morning, I had printouts and a growing dread. Over breakfast, I showed Michael. "Emily, this is worrying," he said, scanning the documents. "They can't force existing owners into an HOA that didn't exist when they bought." "That's what I think. I'm calling our realtor and the title company today." Michael squeezed my hand. "Let's not panic. Maybe it's a misunderstanding." His calm was why I loved him, but as I watched him navigate our kitchen island, one we planned to modify, I feared what lay ahead. A week later, Linda returned, now in a gray suit. Her smile vanished when I said we wouldn't join. "I've checked with our realtor and a lawyer," I told her. "Since the HOA formed after we bought, we can't be forced in." Her face flushed. "You're wrong. The HOA has jurisdiction over all properties here. Not under state law," I countered. She stared at me. "You're making a big mistake, Mrs. Carter." As she walked to her sleek sedan, she snapped photos of our yard. "What are you doing?" I called. "Documenting the non-compliant ramp and landscaping," she said without turning. "The board needs to see this." Trouble had just begun. 3 days later, a yellow notice appeared under our windshield wiper, claiming our car was improperly parked in our own driveway. "This is ridiculous," Michael said. I tossed it out. "They're trying to scare us." But the next morning, a notice was taped to our door. "Violation. Unapproved exterior modification, wheelchair ramp." 2 days later, a letter demanded $100 daily fines for the ramp. "They can't do this," I said, furious. "We're not in their HOA." That afternoon, I called a property lawyer. "You're right," she confirmed. "They can't force you into a post-purchase HOA or fine you for disability accommodations." I sent a certified letter to the HOA board, citing laws and demanding they stop. The next day, I was working from home when a truck pulled up. 2 landscapers started trimming our lawn. "What are you doing?" I asked, rushing out. "HOA orders," one said. "Your grass is an 1/8 inch too tall." "We're not in the HOA," I said. "Get off my property." The man shrugged. "Lady who hired us said you'd say that. Told us to do it and bill you." I recorded them leaving. That evening, Michael's physical therapist, Rachel, arrived. As they worked, a police cruiser pulled up. An officer knocked. "Complain about an illegal business here." "A business?" I said. "My husband's having therapy for his MS." "Someone reported regular clients," he said, looking uneasy. After Rachel showed her credentials, he apologized and left. "This is out of control," I told Michael later. "They're watching us, making fake reports." "Maybe we should join," he said, his optimism fading. "No," I said. "That's what they want, bullying us into submission." At 6:15 a.m. the next day, an inspector pounded on our door. "Noise complaint. Loud machinery all night," he said. "That's absurd," I replied. "The only machinery is Michael's medical equipment, and we were asleep." He eyed Michael's wheelchair. "I need to inspect it." "Absolutely not," I said. "Leave." I installed a security camera that day. That night, our power cut off. Every other house stayed lit. The utility worker later said, "Someone tampered with your meter, switched it off manually." Chillingly deliberate. More notices followed. Improper trash placement, unapproved curtains, excessive medical equipment visible. "They're targeting me because I'm disabled," Michael said, his voice breaking. That afternoon, Linda walked by with 2 women. "Such a shame," she said loudly. "This neighborhood used to have standards." "Should be illegal in a residential area," one replied. I confronted them. "If you've got concerns, say it to me." Linda smiled coldly. "We're worried about property values. Your situation, the ramp, the equipment, it's an eyesore." "My husband's disability?" I snapped. "The Fair Housing Act and ADA protect our rights to modifications. Laws can be interpreted," she said. "Accidents happen to those who don't fit in." That night, cars blocked our driveway at midnight, Linda's SUV among them. Public street. Her husband, Greg, smirked when I challenged them. "Prove it's harassment." The next morning, I woke to Michael's scream. He was on the porch, chained to the railing by his wheelchair, sobbing. An orange notice read, "Violation, unapproved ramp. $500 daily fine." Our camera caught Linda and two board members doing it at 5:43 a.m., laughing. Our neighbor, Henry, was outraged. Call the police. Officer Daniels arrived, but hesitated. Linda's husband is Chief Parker's buddy. This might get messy. Maybe join the HOA. They chained a disabled person. Michael said, that's a hate crime. I'll file a report, Daniels said, unconvinced. Neighbors shared similar stories, harassment until they sold cheap to Linda's family. That night, our power cut again. Someone had faked a wiring violation. In the dark, I researched Linda and the HOA. They'd collected $850,000 in fees last year, but only $47,000 went to upkeep. The rest funded Linda's family, vacation homes, a yacht, $250,000 salaries. The HOA wasn't even legally registered, paperwork rejected years ago. They'd forced out 40 homeowners, targeting the vulnerable. We need someone outside their reach, I said. Michael pulled out a photo of him with Governor Margaret Evans from law school. She's my old friend. We worked on housing rights together before my MS. He called her. Maggie, it's Michael Carter. I need your help with a housing crisis, disabled residents targeted. 3 black SUVs arrived soon after. Governor Evans stepped out, hugging Michael. I've missed you. We showed her everything. This is criminal, she said, calling in state investigators. They set up cameras and planned a trap. Michael was appointed to a housing commission, leaking he might resign due to personal issues. Linda took the bait, bursting into our home with a locksmith, demanding we sign over our property. Sign, or next time it's not just your wheelchair we chain, she snarled. Sirens blared, not local cops, but state troopers. The Attorney General arrested Linda and her crew. Governor Evans confronted her. You picked the wrong fight with my friend. Linda's scheme unraveled. $2 million in stolen fees, forced sales, her husband implicated. She got 8 years. Michael helped pass the Michael Carter Act, protecting homeowners from predatory HOAs. Our neighborhood bloomed with diversity, and Michael led a disability rights committee. Linda's biggest mistake? Underestimating my husband.